Hello everybody, this is the Wikstrand. So the movie of today is The Abyss, and I have made it very vocal that I do not like movies with lots of underwater settings and stuff like that, because it moves like fucking erosion or like you are underwater. But this is a rare exception. This is where not only does the underwater setting benefit the movie from a story perspective, but it is also so much excitement. And this is maybe one of the most underrated movies of the entire 1980s, and that is fucking saying something. So join me as I open up a bottle of champagne and review my 350th movie, which is called The Abyss. Bud, played by Ed Harris, is ordered to move his underwater station towards a deep-sea trench in order to help the US government retrieve a sunken nuclear submarine. Ed Harris is not very happy about this, not only because, he doesn't want any military personnel running around on his station, but they're also led by Mary Elizabeth Mastertoney, who plays his ex-wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife. I think they were kind of on the divorce course when this thing was happening, but we'll deal with that later. So they, start, diving towards this thing. This happens around 1994, if I understood this one correctly, where the tension between the United States and the Soviet Union are at an all-time high. Ignoring that, the Soviet Union didn't exist in 1994, just deal with it, meet the filmmakers halfway and you'll be all right. So they're trying to do these dives and they're trying to find any survivors. Spoilers, there are none. But certain things start to happen when they're doing these dives. And this is the point of the movie that is kind of a howl or scowl part of the movie, because you will either go, ooh, I like this, or you'll go, oh no, they're not going to do this, are they? So it all depends on your reaction to the whole thing. Me personally, this was exactly what I wanted. I loved it so much. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to say what it is. I will just say this. James Cameron, he was a very patient boy who waited 40 minutes to give us the first little tease of what's about to happen. And then he waited 1 hour and 7 minutes into this movie before he got us the big reveal. And when that big reveal happens, every time I rewatch this movie, I always go to the same thing. Oh, that is so awesome. I love it. I won't say what it is. People have seen this movie already knows, but the thing is that this movie is far beyond what a normal disaster movie or underwater thriller is. This is just so much more, and the fact that it is so much more, this movie feels very genuine and feels very real, because you actually are underwater in this movie. The production of this was a notoriously harsh one, and it is no coincidence, I think, that virtually nobody who worked on this movie worked on any other James Cameron movie after this, because he almost drowned the entire soggy, wet crew and cast when it was all said and done, and there was a lot of clashes and unrest on the sets when this thing happened. Now, when it comes to the acting in this movie, it's absolutely amazing. Ed Harris is fantastic. Mastertoney is great, but the real show stealer just might be Michael Biehn in his best performance of all time. He plays Lieutenant Coffey, who is one of these military guys who's going to, help them retrieve the nuclear submarine. But he very slowly goes insane, and he's sort of a kind of a tragic villain in this movie. And the more he goes insane, the sadder you feel for him, because he wasn't bad from the beginning. He just gradually turns evil. I always found that more fascinating than, just mustache twirling and cape, top hat, and I'm going to be evil now and stuff like that. This movie is kind of difficult to talk about without spoiling what's about to happen. But I will say this. This is a movie that is so fascinating, that is so big, so grand, and has such a spectacle over it that I absolutely love every second of it. This movie might come across as a little bit slow to some people, but you just need to have a little bit of a patience with this one. The pace is not very, rapid on this one, but it doesn't need to be because it has such weight to it. And stuff is happening all the time. And everybody has, different character arcs, and the supporting characters are so great. And they have their own arcs and they're so well played, so you really care what happens to them. And we also have this thing where, one of these civilians are trying to attack Coffee and they have this fight and he really gets his ass kicked. And that is one of the best fights I've seen in the movie because it is believable what is going to happen. He has the upper hand, but then he gets absolutely, manhandled by a man who knows how to fight. They have a tendency sometimes in movies to forget that people with no fighting skills are able to take out highly trained commandos and stuff like that just because they had the fighting spirit or something like that. That is a small little detail that I really liked. So the end of this movie is a really long and drawn out and fascinating and slightly corny story. But if you accept it, you will love it. But if you're slightly allergic to this type of movie, you will go a bit, ooh, I didn't like this one. For a second, I think also we should talk about the different versions of this movie. There is a shorter version of this movie. I know that because it exists on my DVD version of The Abyss. But the thing is that I've only seen the long version. And it is so good that I've never felt the need to see the short version. So I'm recommending the long version if you have the patience, and hopefully you do. Normally I hate underwater movies and underwater sequences because they're so boring and they're so slow and they're so uninteresting, but in this case they're so filled with tension, so filled with terror and so filled with dread that you cannot help but be amazed on how epic and big and majestic they are, despite the fact that they kind of moves in a very slow way. But the consequences and the fear are just so ever present, especially when you're having a CPR sequence that goes on for 4 minutes. And it's probably one of the most emotionally charged sequences I've ever seen in my entire life. I remember seeing that sequence as a kid and I was being, oh my god, please make it stop, please stop Ed Harris. It's a sequence that almost goes overboard, but stays on the right side of overacting, but it was very, very close that they, just went right past it. So I really recommend this movie. It is a fantastic disaster underwater thriller that has so much tension to itself, has so many fascinating characters, so many great moments, and an absolutely epic finale that I absolutely love. For all the wrong reasons maybe, but I love it so much. It's definitely James Cameron's most underrated movie of all time. The mixture in of a different movie genre that kind of slips into this movie actually does work if you like that sort of thing and if you allow it to work. And I personally think he really made it work. It is a fantastic piece of business, amazing music, and the amazing characters and the great acting helps this movie greatly along the way. The movie's special effects, they've actually aged surprisingly well. You can see that it is the childhood of CGI, but it still works. And the story is so fascinating, you don't exactly know where this one's going. The emotionally charged, visually amazing third act helped this movie in a major way. Some people will be put off by it, but not me. I love this movie so much. I give this movie 94 points. I just wish this movie could have been even longer actually. It's one of my favorite movies of the late 80s. So which version have you seen? The long one or the short one? I'll see you next time for so-and-so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.